Hello guys, and I'm Darshan Senthil, joining you for the fourth video of my chess tactics tutorial, intermediate chess tactics tutorial series. And in this video we're going to be talking about forks. Now forks are like skewers, they're very like aggressive moves where you move in and check and capture, like that kind of thing. They're not passive. And this is also one of the most fun things and fun parts I find to chess, where you just like fork and sort of really annoy your opponent. And like skewers, these also can change the game in the last minute and sort of turn the tables on your opponent. So in this particular position, it looks as though black is clearly winning, and he is actually, because he's a queen up while you have just a knight and a pawn. But however, white can just turn the game on black just like that. Now find the best move for white here, and yeah, just take a second and I'm just gonna go over it right now. That move is knight to e6 check. Now what this does is it's sort of attacking the king and the queen at the same time. Now this is what a fork is. It's when one of your pieces is attacking two or more pieces at the same time. And this is an exciting concept because it's really fun to just like, it's something you'll see more often than the others. Like, it's not very often that you'll get a perfect skewer that looks so good, or a perfect like pin, something like that. But this is something that you will get, that you can find more often, very often, like a knight forking a rook, a queen to the king, or a rook to the king. This is something you will see very, very often. So this is something you should keep your eyes open for again while playing your games. Now from this position it doesn't really matter. King to e7, knight takes the queen, and from here white can queen this pawn here, and it's pretty much a win. And black has not got any chance of winning here. Best he can do is aim for a draw, which is highly improbable owing to the fact that white's got a pawn here, and if he just plays his endgame right, it's an easy win. Now let me just show you one of the special things about pins. Okay, so that special thing about about forks is that any piece can perform a fork. Now it doesn't matter what sort of piece, any piece, even the king, like if you notice the pawn can perform, even the pawn can perform a fork, even the bishop can perform a fork, and even the queen is actually one of the more effective pieces to perform a fork. Even the king can perform a fork, and I think I forgot to add it, but even the rook can perform a fork. Like, I'll just place one, say, over here. Even he can perform a fork this way as well. So any piece can really perform a fork, but actually the true definition of fork is when a knight does it, and that is mainly because, let's see, when the king is over here, let's just put him there for the sake of this example, then if the knight checks him like this, then if you just notice, it looks a bit like a fork, because my arrow's not, yeah, like, just look at it like this, then you sort of get that kind of, wait, let me just get the arrows right. Yeah, it sort of looks like a fork. That's kind of thing like this. Not the sort of fork you use every day, but that's kind of thing that you get things off a barbecue stick with, that kind of fork. So this sort of looks like that kind of fork here, and that's probably one of the reasons that it's called a fork for knight. So by definition, all of these things here are forks, like all what we saw before and stuff. But for more technical terms, the fork is generally referred to when the knight performs a check because of the shape. But by definition, all of these are forks, but these are generally referred to as double attack or triple attack based on how many pieces are being attacked, although they are technically forks by definition. So just keep that in mind, and let's just do a couple of problems to sort of jog our brains on this concept. Okay, so now in this particular position there's no evident fork, but like I said in the previous video, you don't always just get it up like that. You need to find them and really sort of make it happen. And in this position, you're gonna need to make the fork happen, and it's a really simple thing actually, but you're just gonna need to think a little bit here to sort of get it. There are actually there are two possible ways you can get a fork, but only one will really get you a good fork, a good thing that will actually gain you material here. this particular position. So take a second and sort of try to find that out. Okay, so the move here, there are the two sorts of forks here. There are two sorts of forks, like I said. The first one would be rook to b5. Oh, wait, sorry. Just a minute. Okay, so the first move would be rook to b5. Now what this does, it does attack both the knights, so the idea is correct, but this would be a pretty futile attack, because all white has to do is simply defend one of the knights while moving the other, or defend both of them at once. Now he has a lot of options. He can capture this pawn on b7, he can move his knight to b3, he can move his pawn to b4, and it's a pretty futile attack. You're not going to get anywhere with this. It's just a textbook answer. It's not even a textbook, it's just like a textbook answer. You're not going to get any good thing out from this. So the real good move here is actually rook to d6 check. Now this does seem a very out of context move, but it's got a bigger idea behind it. So now, of course, it doesn't matter what white does here. He can block with his bishop, and now you bring your fork with your pawn to b6. Now this is a much better fork, because it doesn't matter if he can defend his knights, because even if he does, you would simply be able to, like if he were to play b4, it wouldn't matter, because even if he did capture back your pawn, a knight is worth far more than a pawn, so you're still up in material. And now notice that even if he wanted to move to b7 or something, you could just simply bring your rook back, and his knight here is still being attacked while this knight is also being attacked. So this is also a sort of double attack here, and now it's pretty much certain that white will lose material here, unless, yeah, it's pretty much certain that white will lose material. So that's just how you need to sort of think out of the box sometimes and look ahead and get your moves out. So just something to keep in mind, and on to the next problem. Yeah, so now in this position here, again, you don't have it presented to you, the fork, but you can also, this is something where you need to think a little bit. You need to stretch your brain a little bit here, because it's not very obvious that you're gonna get an easy fork here, but you're gonna need to sort of take a risk here to get what you need. And obviously this is probably not what's gonna come to everybody's mind if this was an actual game, because if you're already under the pressure that the queen is, that you're a queen up, you may not see this move, because it's a really radical one, and not that one that would generally be advisable here, if you didn't have a bigger idea behind it. So try to find it. I'd recommend you pause the video if you really need to, and just go out there and find it. Now the move here is actually rook to f6 check, and now you can see why I said that not many people would play this when they see that in this particular position, because when you're already a queen down, when you're down in material and your opposition has a queen and you don't in particular, you're not looking to sacrifice material. You're looking to keep whatever material you can, and sort of giving up a rook for free is not something that is on your mind now. You're looking to keep what material you have and sort of play forward with it. So in this position now, if you notice here, it's sort of forming a skewer here. It's a little skewer, so black cannot really afford to move his king here. His only option is to take this rook, and then once he does that, you've got yourself a fork. Knight to e4 gives you a fork, and then you've got the queen and the rook, and then you see that sort of barbecue fork again. Let's say barbecue fork. Yeah, you see that kind of fork again. And here black loses his queen, and there's nothing he can really do about it, because eventually your king can come around and sort of, let's just say he moves to what, b4, g6, let's say, and you would take that, and even if he came down to capture those pawns, you have an extra knight. You can start munching on these b7, these b pawns here, and it's pretty much an easy win here. Now that just shows how you need to think ahead sometimes and be willing to play these radical moves that sort of win you the games, because sorry, it's my opinion that chess is like a game, like a staring contest. It's the guy who cracks first who loses. So you need to keep your head at all times, even when you're down under, like with this, when you're down in material or anything like that. Keep your nerve and look for these exciting moves that can turn the tide, because this is stuff that you may always have but just miss because you're more focused on keeping your material rather than trying to go against him. Always keep that in your mind. Always look for the win. Never just give up until the last move, until he puts his hand down and says checkmate or anything else. Do not give up. That's a little bit of advice over here. Just keep looking for that, either the win, if not a win, the draw. Keep looking for it. Always look for that. Just a bit of advice before we move on to our next problem. Now in this position, if you notice, you're the one who's being forked here because you're playing black, obviously, and this knight here is eyeing down both your queen and your rook here. This rook on f5 and your queen on h5. So it looks like you're going to lose more material here, and this is obviously not good since you're already a knight down and you don't really want to lose anything more. But there is a way you can actually get out of this, because the first thing you should notice is that this is not a forced fork, because it is not forking down the king, and hence you have no real obligation to give to just simply move one of these pieces to safety. You can do something really interesting here that sort of saves your skin and gets you a little bit of extra, and sort of, yeah, saves you the position. So just take a minute and find that position, that move here. So that move here is actually rook to b5 check. Now what does this look similar to that we've seen in previous videos? It's escaping with tempo, right? And that is something that you can use in all the stuff we've studied so far. You can use it in pins, you can use it in skewers, even though I didn't show you an example, and you can use it in forks. So when you're not being forked to your king, there should always be some way you can find this. You should always look to escape with tempo. So when there's a wall, don't just walk at it, run and jump over it. Something just like that. And now of course it doesn't really matter what white does. His king is not in any big threat, but if he moves to a1, you can just get your queen away to safety now. You can move it down to f7, or you can also give a check of your own here with queen to e5, or he can block with c3, and you've not lost any material. And even though this isn't really a big plus for your position, you've saved yourself from losing some material unnecessarily. So again, thanks for watching this video, and I tried to get this in as early as possible owing to the delay for the previous two, and I'm happy I was able to find some time to do this, and I hope you enjoy watching these videos. And after this I plan to do a couple more types of series along with like basic piece moves and stuff like that. And I hope you've learned a lot in this video as well, because like the theme of escaping the tempo and how to use forks and stuff like that. I hope you found this really useful, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.